I don't know how many of you remember that movie. I believe it was in the 80s. And the character, he was stuck in a rut. He was in this old town.
Repeating the same thing
and
over and over.
He was in this old town, and they were waiting for the groundhog to come up, and that groundhog would have said how many more weeks of winter there was. And it turned out that this character, this newsman, was waking up every morning to the same repetitive day.
Yeah.
And he found himself in a Groundhog Day hell. And he was really struggling because he was at the end. He was trying to find a way to kill himself already because he couldn't understand why he has to live in this repetitive cycle where he had to see the same people, he had to have the same conversations, he had to relive exactly the same day. And it turned out that the situation was a blessing in disguise, because he had to come to the realization that he had to get better at every single activity that he came across.
Absolutely.
In order to get through this break the spell. And so that meant the conversations that he had to have them nicer. He had to find value in the communication with the people that he had. He developed new skills. He learned how to carve ice. He learned how to give the Heimlich maneuver, and he saved somebody's life. He learned how to play the piano. He learned how to speak and develop a relationship with a woman that he first was trying to kind of avoid, but then he developed a relationship, and he learned how to be romantic. And he turned into somebody who didn't want to be in this little town, which he thought was just a place nowhere. He found great value in the people, in the community, and in how he developed his relationship. And so the theme of Groundhog Day, and when you find yourself living a life of repetitiveness, what you're doing is you're creating consistency in your life.
Absolutely.
And that consistency turns into the repetitiveness that will help you solidify great habits that you want to change in your life. And eventually that will create the goals and help you achieve the goals that you've always wanted.
Yeah, and it's how you look at them. And I think that's how he looked at repetitiveness. It's what you do with this, right? Like you can just say, oh, wow, I'm stuck in it, and I'm just not going anywhere with this. Or, like he wanted to kill himself at some point. But then you take the same repetitiveness and you use it to your advantage, right? And it could be in a weight loss. It could be in your relationship with your loved ones. It could be in your relationships at work, relationship with kids, right? It's really how you take that repetition and use it to your best advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're always looking for two things in our life. It's achievement and recognition.
Yeah.
And if you put effort every single day into moving forward in the goals that you want, it doesn't matter how small they are. I think it's important to understand that it's not going to be in the big strides that's going to create the achievement, because for some people that's true, but for the majority of us, taking big strides often sets us back 2 steps, because we get so far ahead of ourselves, we can't keep up the pace.
Yeah.
And when we're taking small steps, they're easier chunks to keep up with the pace. And so we're more inclined to keep going because it feels easier. And things that feel easier makes you want to stick to it. And it's the everyday, the incremental steps that will make you want to stick to a goal that'll help you at the end to achieve it.
Yeah, and sometimes it's the little steps, like Marat said, that they're also more noticeable because they're so small. You can actually evaluate them in the same day or maybe even 2 days later, whatever the small goal is. But when you look like 30 days down the road or 60 days down the road, that looks so far away that it's not necessarily feels like it's achievable. But if you give yourself maybe, it's like having any deadlines, like at work or at school or at home, you say to yourself, I'm going to complete it in 2 days. That's achievable. When you do it, you're like, yay, I've done it. Same thing with with making sure you focus on those little goals, right? And repeating them, because sometimes we have to repeat a lot of times the same goals until it's finally becomes part of us, right? Because we naturally train to right away reject all of this, but repetition creates a habit, and the more you repeat, the more it's going to look very, very normal to you and to your body and to your brain. That is part of the daily routine, right? So maybe you wake up at 5 o'clock. Of course, you're not going to wake up tomorrow. You could, but commit to the first 3 days. Maybe 3 days out of the first week you wake up 5 a.m. and then so on and so forth. The same thing with weight loss, right? Like everybody just jumps on this train. Yay, January 1st, February 1st, March 1st, we're gonna all motivated for the first 90 days, and then everybody goes off the train because you only leave in that 90-day plan rather than focusing on
the easier chunks also
rather
to
than
create
saying,
by 90 days instead of 12 months.
I'm gonna be just I'm gonna try the first week to go to the gym, second week I'm gonna try to go for walks, right? Like planning that way, still
That's
within
right.
90 days, but rather than saying, okay, everybody runs to the gym, I'll run too.
Right, and then when you get into a momentum, it's easier to keep going.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
So the goal is always to start, and the hardest part is always going to be to start. So once you start and you develop a momentum, it's easier to go, right? Imagine your car can get stuck in the mud, and you've got two people that are pushing it and rocking the car back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
It's that rocking motion that's going to allow that car to get out of the mud.
Absolutely.
And if you don't rock the car, you really aren't going to get it out of the mud. If you just try pushing, it's not going to work. So it's in your momentum that's going to allow you to get to the actions that are eventually going to allow you to create the habits that in turn will allow you to create the goals and achieve those goals eventually, right? So don't kick yourself. Don't compare yourself to anybody else, and work at your own pace. And if you didn't do it today, you'll do it tomorrow. If not tomorrow, the next day. But the important thing is to never give up. Do it and do it and do it again and create the momentum, right? And so that leads me into the negative thoughts part of our video. Recently, I came across a wonderful article by TED Talks, and I'll share the link to that article later because it's definitely worth reading. But the TED Talk basically was by a Nobel Prize winner. She was talking about something called telomeres. The telomeres, they're almost like the plastic end of your shoelace that keeps the shoelace together from frilling all over the place. And they keep the chromosome, the genetic part of your code, together, that if those telomeres are to start to break apart, it starts to shorten the chromosomes and that tail end. And eventually what she found out is that impacts you in a negative way. And it ages you much quicker than you normally should. And those telomeres, they're listening to your body. Your actions and your thoughts will determine how quickly those little telomeres, those little tail ends, how quickly they shorten. And so what they found out was that your telomeres are listening to, I'm just going to read what it says here. Your telomeres are listening to you, the foods that you eat, the response to challenges, the amount of exercise you get, and the many other factors that can prevent premature aging at the cellular level. And one of the key factors to enjoy good health is the how you foster your health and how you act towards your health in terms of how you eat and how you exercise and how you sleep. And so the reasons some of those telomeres will shorten, she says, was cynical hostility, pessimism, rumination, which means the thoughts of rehashing the problems over and over again.
You never get out of that
You
cycle.
never get out of that cycle. And thought suppression, so attempting to push away thoughts. So when you have negative thoughts that are coming your way, instead of dealing with them at the moment, you are trying to suppress them and put them away. And there's only so much space that you have in your brain to be able to store information. And when you're ready to recall that information, often you're going to recall the thoughts that you're trying to suppress instead of the bank of positive thoughts. And so dealing with the situation right at the moment helps you to deal with it and to move your life forward. Where suppressing it, you not only dealt with it in the present, that you were stressed out about it, but now you're going to rehash it and deal with it again in some at some other future time.
Well, it's like a terrible Pandora box that you constantly take you file it there and then you start taking it away. But I think what I want to touch base on the fact that, when we have negative thoughts, the problems with this negative thoughts, it affects our whole entire body. And for women over 40, the struggle is our cortisol, especially when we're stressed out, rises so high, then it kicks our insulin higher and does not allow us to lose weight. We are stuck. And we're keeping it and keeping it and keeping it, and we're struggling with this all the time. And until you ladies are going to bring your stress level down, it's going to be really, really hard to continue for you to lose weight. Any part of the weight loss journey is that your stress has to be under control. And it could be done through meditation, it could be done through journaling, could be done through also the foods that we eat could cause stress to our body as well, right? They might not cause your mood swings or whatnot, but it does cause internal stress that we're not even aware of.
Yeah, absolutely. Our whole body has to do with food particles that we eat. So all of that gets absorbed in all our tissues. So food for sure is a number one critical issue about how you approach food and what you're eating.
Yes, very true. So focus on not, don't allow those negative thoughts to flourish, because every time you bring them out of that Pandora box and that's storing those negative feelings and thoughts in the back of your brain, you're reliving, like Marat said, that moment. You shorten your life, actually, in fact, by remembering.
Well, you literally are shortening your life. When this telomere is shortened, it ages you faster, which in turn is shortening your life. But you have an opportunity to change that by changing some of these habits.
So, find habits that work for you. Find repetition in those habits that will help you to stick for those habits to stick longer, because it is a process. It never happens overnight. It takes time for anything in order for you to be successful, it takes time for it to be repetitive enough that it becomes part of you, like I said earlier.
And so the other issue is mind wandering. So yes, there could be a creative side to your mind wandering. You're thinking about many other things, but when you're not present in the moment and you're constantly thinking about the next thing while you are speaking to somebody, or while you are engaged in some activity, but you're always thinking about something far off, you're not really enjoying that moment, and it's creating stress for you because you've got one foot here, but you also have one foot there. You might be at work, but thinking about your vacation. You might be with your spouse, but thinking about somebody else. You might be with your kids, but thinking about being with your friends. So that disconnect creates stress in our lives because we don't really want to be here. We want to be there. When we're there, we want to be over here. And that's creating stress. And that activity is talking to those telomeres and is shortening as well. And that's also creating a stressful cycle in our lives.
All right. So what else do we want to share?
Negative thought patterns, they can quit with the activities that promote better health and thought awareness, like meditation. So some of these things that can help to push away some of those negative thoughts are things like awareness, like better meditation, exercise, of course, good nutrition habits that ultimately promote better health and better brain health. Okay. Where
can people find this information about all of the great stuff?
I will provide a link for them.
Okay.
I'll provide a link. Yeah, I'll provide a link in this video. I'll provide a link for where people can go to our Healthy Mind Fit Body group. You can find us on Instagram, and I'll also provide a link that goes to this TED Talk because it's worth listening to.
Yeah, and if you guys looking to have a coach in your life, and I recommend coaches for many people, coaching is extremely important. It holds you accountable for things that you want to do with your life. It allows you to have that extra support on the side, but also teaches you to grow within yourself. And self-development, self-image is the most important thing. When you have a self-image that allows you to be you, who you are, you can move the mountains. That's where the coaches come in. Marat and I have been doing it for a long time. I focus with women over 40 on their weight loss and stress management. That's my specialty. Marat works with males, but also females, especially dads. Being a dad makes sense, right? It's that trying to find a healthy balance between family time, personal time, right? The kids' time, whatever the time is. And we've been doing it for a long time. He's got a phenomenal expertise and knowing everything about
Well, our
cooking
whole